done with casting pearls amongst the swine. 'Cause each of us is running out of time. It's already started silent, you won't hear a chime. You'll be measured and punished for each heavenly crime.
Hello and welcome to the Belfast Bapcast. Today we have back on returning guest Guy Anderson to discuss his new book, Conspiracy Theories, where basically goes through all the different conspiracy theories that he has researched over the years. So very happy to have you back, Guy. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back on, and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you as well, even though it's not the New Year's we were discussing, but
I know.
we'll let it fly.
We're stuck with it for now. Hopefully it'll return. Yeah, I was just talking to someone about that. Maybe in our
lifetime. Are you going to introduce the special guest?
Oh, Arthur. He is normally sat on my lap, but just at the moment he's decided to stick his head up a bit. But he's normally sat on my lap.
Oh, he's more
He'll
than
probably
welcome.
get asleep in a moment. No, he's moving about. Do you want to get down?
I'll let Arthur stay, no?
No, he's had enough. Normally he's asleep on my lap when I'm sat here.
There's
I'm
nothing
grateful.
beats
It's
a
a bit of
dog,
company.
to be fair.
No,
We have three.
No, definitely not. Have you?
Yeah, and they're not exactly space-saving dogs either. We have one French, which is French bulldog, and then two American bulldogs. They're like 50 kilos each, and two big softies. But you've got a corner of the double bed, and they have the rest. Not ideal. So I have got 2 chapters so far into your book, so I'm not going to pretend that I've read the whole thing, but so far so good. And it is literally just going through everything that you've researched from what I can gather. So do you want to just talk a wee bit about the book for people who just let them know what it's about?
Yeah, well, it's 87 different chapters, and each one is a rabbit hole, a separate rabbit hole. And they're things that I've been researching for a long time, and some of them are relatively new as well. But quite often, as you're reading it, you'll see that some of the chapters connect to Tartaria or human cloning. And Tartaria, I think, is always going to be in my mind. No matter what I'm writing, I'll always see a connection or find a connection somewhere.
Like this one?
Yeah, I'm it's funny, because I don't think it'll matter now what I write. That book will always be special because it was my first attempt, and I've learned a lot since then on how to write and editing and so on. But I think it's always going to be my favorite subject, Tartaria. So I have sort of wormed it in to a few of the chapters just to encourage people that don't know about Tartaria but are into conspiracy theories, that it does actually join a lot of dots together. But there's chapters in there on like Princess Diana, Tony Blair, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, some really nefarious characters out there. But and then some traditional ones like Operation Paperclip, for example. People find all of that quite fascinating. So it's I suppose, years and years of being down the rabbit hole, being a tinfoil hat wearer, put into bite-sized chunks, so you could literally read a chapter on the loo, or on the bus on the way to work or something.
So you were saying that the Tesla and the Cabbage Patch Kids will always hold a special place for you. Can you talk us through the process now of writing? How you go about it? Do you set yourself like a framework, or do you set the chapters first, or how do you go about your process?
With the first book, that was 5 years of notes in notebooks, and they weren't in any order. So it was an absolute mission trying to get it all to make sense, because I might have had one notebook full of information on world's fairs and expositions, and then a notebook that perhaps is a year newer that just had one page in it with some information that was vital. So I had to read through them all and put sort of stars and references and post-it notes everywhere. Now refer to this page in this notebook, and it was really difficult. So now I'm more structured. What I do now is get all of my notes together and then write them in one big notebook and start all over again. But I write everything down. I write it all down.
Is
So
it
I've just got
handwritten?
notebooks everywhere. Yeah. So
Yeah.
my first book, which is the team at 𝐬𝐿𝐫𝐞𝐿, which is David Icke's sons, Jamie and Gareth, they're turning my first book into an 8-part documentary. So yeah, everything is. I write everything down, just pages and pages, and and that I have to do it. I have to do it that way because I write as people are talking to me, or if I'm chatting to someone who wants to be anonymous over Zoom.
Yeah.
I'll be writing the whole time they're talking to me, and then I might watch something on BitChute and I'm making notes, or I'm reading an old book and I'll make notes from that. I want it in notebook form because if everything gets turned off at some point, then I'll lose the lot. But all of my books, somebody might read them. 100 years from now, someone might come across them and read through them all and think, "Wow, this bloke was insane," or actually, my God, this is actually played out. This is now, he wrote this stuff 10 years before it became common knowledge or mainstream. And I think it's nice. We don't write anymore, do we? People don't keep journals, and I still use physical diaries. I write my diary every day.
I've only started journaling again, 32 days ago to be precise. But it's it's a missing art, to be honest. It's really helps you work through not only stuff like this here. I mean, it helps you work through your own thoughts.
I think
and
so.
you can read them back and sort of digest them as a third party sitter.
I think so, and we spend too much time with screens, don't we? And people's diaries are in their phones, and everybody could read this, but at the same time, you can lose it all too. It can just be switched off, and I think it's it's nice to have this stuff. And my kids might throw it in the bin when I've gone. My grandchildren might not be interested in it, but there is that chance they will. And I'm going to leave behind diaries and notebooks full of information. And hopefully, in years to come, somebody out there will grab hold of one of them, and it might just fill in a few blanks, a few pieces of the jigsaw.
At least your handwriting is legible.
What do you think? That's a problem, isn't it? I mean, how many kids now are going to actually be able to spend time working on their handwriting? Or, my granddad spent hours teaching me how to create a signature. It's all gone. We're staring at a screen all the time, and this is not what we're supposed to be doing.
It's almost like it's by design, complete reliability on the system, so it can be removed at some point and you'll beg and do whatever to have those things back,
Yeah, totally agree. I totally agree.
And I think subconsciously you've probably done it pen and paper for that reason as well, because, you can't be Mandela affected and it can't be manipulated because it's written. Yeah, exactly.
And it is like everything. I actually did a monologue a moment ago, which I'm going to put on my YouTube channel. I hate doing them. I'm much better talking to someone, and that's why I couldn't do my own audio books. It's just not something I'm good at doing. And I said in that what happens when they turn everything off? If they turn everything, what have we got? We lose our diary. We lose all our appointments. We lose our music. We lose ebooks, photographs. It's all gone. Then what?
Imagine just GPS going.
Yes. Mind you, years ago I was a graphic designer, and I used to have to go and see customers all over the UK. And I had a boot in my boot. I had a plastic box, and in it I had the street maps of every town and city I went to, and they were dynamite. It was a little bit easy, it's a little bit easier to use sat nav, but rather than having a map on your lap and trying to sort of constantly look down at it. And I used to use a highlighter, so I could write the route I was taking. But one day I threw them all away. I thought, don't need these anymore. I wish I hadn't have done that.
They're very hard to get back as well, like very good ones. The days of decent 𝐬𝐿 maps seem
A to Z.
gone.
Yeah.
I remember many a family argument over 𝐬𝐿 maps in the car with my mum and dad. My mum reading the map and my dad driving the car. And why didn't you tell me that was the second left? It was just
Yeah.
It was very relational as well, though, and that's something else that's just been taken away by technology.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I find the hardest to accept is when somebody says something like they don't have time for something. And it could be reading, it could be exercising, going for a walk, cooking from scratch. And then I look at how much time they spend on social media. And I think you've got all the time in the world. If you've got more than an hour in your day to spend online, you've got a lot of time to do a lot of other things too. And that's where we're being guided, isn't it? We stare at the screen all day and we dial out to order food and eat heavily processed junk while our minds are being filled with more and more junk as we go along. And we've got to get out of this. This is a trap.
100%. But I think I was speaking to allegedly Dave a couple of times there since I was last speaking with yourself, and what he was saying, like there is just people who are not capable of doing anything other than where they're led to. Really, when he calls them muggles or something.
Yeah,
but it's true.
Yeah.
You have the insight to even ponder these things, whereas I don't think it enters some people's heads.
No, and I think that he's right, but these are the NPCs we're talking about. These are people that just serve a function, and I argue all the time with people about this, saying that this isn't their fault. You can't help the way you are made, and some of us are made to do this. We question everything, we look further, we dig deeper, and other people just sort of plod on through life like they're on a conveyor belt or a hamster wheel, and every day is the same, and they just rinse and
Sometimes
repeat.
it's envious, so isn't it? I envy that sort of going through life with the blinkers on as well, because it seems to be a lot easier than the
Did you ever watch
the
The In-Betweeners?
Bits and pieces. I'm not really a TV guy at all. Like something of the Stone Age.
Well, there's one of the characters on it is Neil. And Neil was the really tall one who was a bit dopey. And I used to be jealous of him because he saw life through rose-tinted spectacles. He didn't really care too much about stuff. Things just happened, and he just, whatever life threw at him, he just accepted it and carried on plodding. Whereas I don't. When something's thrown at me, I investigate it. I don't accept it. I want to know more, and it is quite frustrating because I don't have those quiet times where I can just sit and relax and switch off. My brain is constantly thinking about something, and I can't look up at the sky without seeing chemtrails or wondering whether or not the Earth's flat or we're on a spinning ball. Whereas a lot of people, they don't think about any of that. And I think that sometimes I'm probably a bit envious myself.
100%, 100%. But I think once you remove the emotional status from that way of life, it's not as bad. I used to feel the need to go around and shake everybody, wake them up. I don't really care anymore. As long as I am doing my part and putting stuff out there and keeping my stance the way it is, then it's not my responsibility.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you now. I lost a really good friend of mine last year, and we fell out. We fell out because he kept, every time he got a booster, he kept putting it on Facebook saying he was doing his bit, and then he got cancer. The cancer spread, and we spoke before he died, and sort of rebuilt the bridge, and I never said anything to him, but it was very difficult to stop myself from saying, I wish you had have listened. You laughed at me. You laughing emojis on my posts. You challenged everything I said. I warned people that they were going to end up getting, seriously ill. And in a lot of cases, we were going to see cancer, spike. And then within a few months, he said he'd been diagnosed with it. Within a year, it was terminal. And then that was it. He deteriorated really quickly. And I realized then that it wouldn't have mattered what I had have shown him or what I had have said. He wasn't designed to hear it. It
No.
wasn't in his genetic makeup. So I think now it's better to be there for someone that's just woken up, or someone that's awake and needs help filling in a few blanks, than it is to try and rattle a cage and force it upon someone. It backfires.
Yeah,
So
100%.
yeah, it's not, like you said, it's not your job to wake someone up. I think it's our job to be there to support someone who just has woken up.
I think previously as well, I would have had like a wee bit of, what do you call it, like almost putting myself on a higher position than these people were in reality. I've just been exposed to different information and my brain works differently. So, a lot of friends I lost and, well, fractured friendships with over COVID because of the way they were reacting or the way I was acting and they didn't like. But, you know, we have got to a point in society where polarity is no longer allowed, without falling out. It used to be you could have a disagreement and remain friends and still within the same room without wanting to kill each other. But people equate disagreement now to erasure, which is not the case. You're still
Yeah, I totally
fundamentally
agree.
human at the soul. It's not like because I disagree with, say, trans ideology does not mean I want every trans person to not be here. I'm letting you know that I do not agree with your ideology. That's it. I'll still feed you. I'll still look after you if you need it. It's pretty simple and straightforward.
Yeah, you agree to disagree. And that's what we're supposed to do, isn't it? We're supposed to accept the fact that we have different opinions, different views on things, different beliefs, and move on. But the system is designed for that to actually ultimately turn into bloodshed. And that's been going on for a very long time. Religion's the best example. The millions of people that have died because of their beliefs. And it's hypocrisy, because the true message, I believe, the true message behind everything is love. It's tolerance,
Oh,
acceptance, it's love, unity, love. And we've all got this common goal, haven't we? We want the world to be a better place and everyone to be well and happy and to have whatever they need. Well,
well,
if I
we
have,
think that's the way, but
the
it
system
doesn't
isn't
seem.
designed that way, is it?
No,
No,
the
but it's
framework is sent to
weaponized.
break us. Yeah, the
Yeah.
framework is there to break us. I mean, um, with the different religions, etc. I mean, the Bible in and of itself, for example, is a perfectly good message, but when it's took by institutions or religious institutions, especially, and they attach, doctrine to it, then that's where the problem lies.
Mm,
I mean,
mm.
nobody can really argue with having a personal relationship with your God, with no intermediary, but they have to put somebody in between you and God so that they can have their power. And it's that's where religion, in inverted quotes, is the problem, because the message is not necessarily the problem, it's the delivery and who's delivering it.
Yeah, it's a little bit like somebody somewhere has decided that they are on first name terms with their God. And if you do what they say and you stick your hand in your pocket when asked, then they will have a word and they'll make sure that you get in. And that is a complete reversal of the message.
Exactly.
And I think that's the problem, isn't it? The moment religion became controlled and the moment it became profitable, that was the end. Really, that was the beginning of the end. of what it stood for and its original true purpose. And I was looking at the King James Bible, and that's a good example. I mean, a monarch that decides to rewrite something so it's read in a way in which it promotes the ideology of a monarch ruling over somebody. And what people need to do is look a little bit closer. You know, we're all talking about the King James Bible, or it's the biggest selling Bible of them all. We're all referring to it. If you're going to church, it's what everybody in there is using as their reference. But let's have a look at King James. You know, he wasn't two people have been told. You know, his first wife, I think he married she was 12 years old. He had two very, very well publicized relationships with men, and he was an absolute lunatic. Yet you're reading something that he arranged to be rewritten to suit his needs and purposes, and you're now promoting it yourself. And I think, well, what? You know, if you're going to read the Bible, you need to read the one that was written before he got his hands on it. You know, and that's the problem, is it's profiteering from belief.
100%. And I think, you know, I had Gary Wayne on what day was it? Last week anyway, and he goes into the ancient manuscripts of the Bible and has written a whole book around Genesis. And, you know, he goes into the etymology of Hebrew, for example, and there could be anything up to 6 to 8 different meanings to any given word. So if it's so easy to bastardize when you've got that at your fingertips, you know. And clearly that's what institutions and religions have done for many years.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see what happens long term, because now I think with the, you know, perhaps the Bondi Beach shooting is a good example of this, that it couldn't have just been a straightforward shooting. They had to bring religion into it. And now they're showing people that actually it's dangerous to be out there pushing, or a key member of a particular religious group could cause you personal harm and suffering. And I think they're going to ramp that up to a point where people actually start saying, well, this is going to have to go underground, that we're not going to openly follow any particular religion. And that ties in really nicely with Tony Blair, who has got an awful lot of backing and money behind his One World Faith organization. And I think he's going to suddenly reappear as some kind of savior, saying that he is the new way, he is the religion, he's going to protect everybody, follow his religion, it'll be better for everybody. And that's where I think he's headed. I mean, that's what he's wanting, and he's been pushing that for a while. But I think all of these events, they're going to ramp up. We saw another church last night in Amsterdam, you know, in flames. A beautiful building that's just been burnt to the bloody ground. You know, look what happened to Notre Dame. They're going to carry on destroying places of worship, I think, and we're going to see more attacks and more violence and hatred between different belief groups, and this is all orchestrated.
In regards to the Bondi Beach specifically and the larger narrative around that, like, at the moment, it's very clear to those with eyes to see that we are being pushed towards Jew hatred. Now, I'm not saying that they are or they aren't behind things, but there's a reason why we're being directed in that way. You know, is it to bring in stronger laws against anti-Semitism, bring in Noahide laws? You know, what? Why specifically are we all being, like, if you go on Instagram for 5 minutes, you'll come across an anti-Israeli, anti-Jew video within like 5 to 10 minutes. And that's algorithmic push. That's not by chance.
I agree. And they're an easy target, aren't they? And a little while ago, you weren't allowed to say anything. You couldn't actually, you know, if you even put the word Jew somewhere, you know, it's a problem. I talk about it quite a bit because my mum's Jewish, You know, my mum's Jewish, my wife's Muslim, my dad's Roman Catholic. You know, we've got it all going on here. You
Healthy
know,
spread.
yeah, and ultimately, of course, they're all actually sharing the same message. It's all the same kind of thing, really. The Torah is really the Old Testament. You know, a lot of it comes from the Torah, and you know, the Quran. They're talking about Jesus in there as well. So it's just been used, hasn't it? They've found reasons for us to hate each other, and it is relatively recent that we are able to start talking about Judaism and talking about Jews again. And I think that is by design. We're
Very
supposed to
much
hate
seems
them.
it, yeah.
Yeah, they're supposed to hate us. We're supposed to hate them. And it's another reason for us to not get on. And imagine if you all put your differences aside, if every single person, just in the UK alone, put their differences aside and said, let's forget for a moment what religion we are, what colour we are, and what our first language may be. What do we all have in common? We have a problem with the people that are controlling us. We have a problem with the authority, the government, the World Economic Forum. That is where our problem lies. We all have an issue, and it's the same bloody people that are making our lives hard. So if we focused on that, rather than what religion we believe, then we could change the world. And that's why it's done the way it is. Religion is used just like football. You know, I can hate next door because on a Saturday his team beat mine. So I can hate him for a bit, to the point where, get enough of us together, we can fight.
Yeah.
And people will end up getting seriously hurt, or worse than that, just because we support a different team. But the commonality there is that we both enjoy watching football.
Yeah.
And that might be that the person that plays.
And I think what
the
seems
top.
absurd, though, is people think. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, the irony with it all is a lot of the players switch teams. So it could be that you're wearing your football shirt with the name of your favourite player on the back, and next year he's playing for my team.
Yeah,
So
it's not loyalty, it's money.
Yeah. So it's just another brilliant opportunity, isn't it, to cause animosity, to cause hatred and division. And I believe that is why sport was created in the way it is today. It was another brilliant way to divide and cause issues between people. A reason not to get along.
I don't think that it's only now that people, and it's a small group of people, are waking up to see the framework within which we're allowed to play, which is division and, ruling within that division. But because the frameworks are so ingrained and like we were born into them, it's not that it's just came along in the last 40 to 50 years. For example, this goes back as far as the Venetians, the black mobility. This has been going, like, they have the playbook and they've had it for many, many years. They've had such a higher level of understanding of group psychology, group think, and there's not enough people awake enough to do anything and forms any form of movement, and B, the things are already in place to crush anything like that if it ever did raise its head. And because of the amount of NPCs, which is over 70% of people out there, it ain't possible. It's a pipe dream, and that may sound negative, but I would say it's pragmatic.
I agree. I totally agree. Dolores Cannon believed that about 80% of the population was soulless. And I think by that she just meant they don't have the same connection that we have. I don't think that's actually, that they haven't got a soul. I just don't think they think the same way. And that could be down to genetic memory. But I think that we all have the same potential. But it is interesting where you have families where one person's awake and the other's asleep. Siblings that have very differing views and opinions. And some people believe that that's based on trauma, that it can take a traumatic event to actually change your mindset. You have to experience something profound that then makes you question life itself. And then you start looking for answers that you didn't have any interest in before.
I think the danger zone lies in thinking that having the ability to see these things or having the knowledge of these things makes you in some way special. It doesn't. It simply means that you've been gifted with the ability to read or the ability to research, or as you say, maybe you've had a traumatic event that's opened your eyes to things, or fragmented the brain to the point where it now sees things properly. You know, it's not a us
Yeah.
versus them thing. It's just we're in a different position, and that's just is how it is.
And you're a product of your environment, aren't you? So, your upbringing can determine a lot of this. So, I grew up in a house with a master Freemason who made it very, very obvious to us that it was through joining the Freemasons that was why he had a bigger house now than he did a year ago, and a better car and a better job, and he made that very apparent. And at the time, he's leaving books lying around, not for me to pick up, but he reads a lot. So he'd be reading a book on Atlantis, and he would just leave it lying around, and I'd pick it up and read it. So you are a product of your environment, but you are also you're kind of the average of the 5 people you spend most of your time with, and I think that that's something that people need to consider. I'm constantly saying to my mum that she spends a lot of time with people that don't get out much, have every ailment you could possibly imagine. They don't do this because of that. They don't like to walk too far in case it rains. They don't want to get on a plane in case it crashes. Blah, blah, blah. And she's become like that herself because that is who she's spending her time with. Whereas I tend to only interact with people like yourself. So I don't have conversations with very many people that are rolling their sleeve up and going for the next jab, or are looking up at the sky and seeing that there's a lot of air traffic today. Look at all the condensation. I
Yeah.
tend to look up at the sky with people that can see, we're being bloody plastered in heavy metal again. So
And the
I think
irony
it's
about your mum's friends there is that they're making all these decisions to stay in comfort, ultimately leading to complete discomfort because their body will start to shut down and they will be in
yeah,
complete discomfort. You have to just keep pushing through like comfort zones. No growth or no stability ever happens in a comfort zone. You have to push through and do
hmm
things you're not comfortable with. Otherwise, your body will stop working. If you're not
yeah,
going to take that walk in the rain, or you're going to just be so whimsical, and especially the older you get, that's exactly
mm,
what you just described there was my parents, like, oh, maybe not today, it's raining outside, like, stick a coat on and get on with it. You're from
mm,
Ireland, for God's sake, you know
yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah, I think anybody that's from the UK is used to the rain. But I've done things in my life that I've done a lot of things I shouldn't have done, but I've done a lot of things that I'm pleased I reached down, squeezed myself and manned up for a moment and jumped out of a plane, and skydived, or zip wired like I did for my youngest son. He's stag. 100 miles an hour in the freezing. And I used to go urbexing, so I would explore abandoned buildings. I've fallen through floors. I've been chased by guard dogs and police, and because I wanted to get in an old building to have a look at that staircase or get up in that clock tower, and I said this to somebody the other day. It's actually my daughter-in-law. She said she'd been on one of these escape rooms, and it was a fright night special, and she was petrified and she hated every minute of it, and she was constantly gasping to get her breath back. And I said to her that life isn't measured in minutes, days, or hours. Real life is measured in the moments that take your breath away. That's living.
100%, yeah. And that's
And
pretty
we've got to
profound,
do that.
actually,
I'd rather
because,
go out with a bang.
oh, yeah, yeah, I've always said that, like, what is the point in living safely? And
Mm,
I don't mean live recklessly, but take the chances. Do the thing
mm,
that you're afraid of, because you only get one shot at this. Whether I'm not people say about reincarnation, whatever. But even if you do reincarnate, you're not back in the same body. You're not back in the same head.
No.
So it's a different experience. So you get one chance, and you got to seize it for what it's worth. And I mean, I was doing the complete opposite for years. Like, yes, I may have been awake and may have been looking into things, but I was just numbing my brain with weed or coke or alcohol or whatever. And the last 32 days has really opened my eyes just to like how much I've missed out on. Not in a mourning sense, but like no more. You know, I'm going to seize every opportunity that comes along and strangle it for everything it's worth.
Yeah. And I think what you're doing is something everybody should at least attempt to do if they find themselves in that same position, because, you know, alcohol and drugs, I think, were introduced to us to form an addiction. So we become dependent on something, and it numbs you. You know, it numbs your life, doesn't it? You don't have to face certain things if you're drunk. You know, you come home from work, you hate your job, so you drink a lot, and within an hour or two, you know, life's a bit better. You wake up the next morning with a hangover, drag yourself to work, and then get home and you rinse and repeat, you know, and the beat
Horrible
goes
cycle.
on. And yeah, and I think that these were put in place specifically. I mean, alcohol, you know, that translates to detach your soul, and they're called spirits, aren't they? The heavy alcohol is called spirits. I don't think that's a coincidence. And I
No.
think, you know, smoking a joint or doing psychedelics with a group of people when you're trying to actually achieve something from it all is completely different to doing a line of coke when you're pissed,
Yeah.
you know, and you know, and I think that these are manufactured addictions that have been presented to us as another form of kind of bread and circuses.
But I
But it's
feel
distraction,
if you
escapism.
have an issue, you know, if you have an issue with addiction, yeah, you should stay away from them. But I'm not here to say, you know, if you drink, you're a bad person. Like if you drink and you've got control of
No,
it, you fill your boots. You know, that's entirely your decision, and I ain't going to judge you for it because there's a lot of good to be got from these things. It's just whenever they start to own you and they don't serve you anymore, you know, is the problem.
yeah, yeah, I totally agree. I think, like, you know, I said this to my son. My youngest son doesn't drink, and I said to him, well, I hope you know, have a glass of champagne or something on your wedding day at least, or do a couple of shots on your stag, because there are times when it goes, when there is a role for it and a purpose. But when you're addicted to it, I think that's the problem, isn't it? It's losing control and something overtaking your life, and that happens not necessarily with things that like alcohol and drugs. People find themselves in that trap with lots of different things. It could be exercise, where you're, you know, constantly absorbed and obsessed with how you look and your physique, or people altering their faces and their features with cosmetic surgery, or having, you know,
That blows my
I knew
mind.
someone. Sorry.
That blows my mind. The whole cosmetic industry, like your
Yeah.
face is your fucking face. Like just accept it. You know what I mean? It's not.
Yeah, and
It's
I
we've
get if
all.
you've been injured or disfigured. Um, I understand, but I think when you're when it becomes an obsession, I get it. You know, you might have a nose that's crooked and you need some work, or, you know, you always wanted bigger boobs and that, you know, or whatever. I understand, but I also think that we come in all different shapes and sizes, and unless there's a medical reason or a betterment of your quality of life as a direct result, then I think that these things can often lead to an addiction themselves. And people become addicted to food. You know, they overeat, they're eating the wrong thing, they're getting no nutrients, so they have to eat more and more and more and more of the same crap to feel satisfied. And it is like a lot of us, I suppose, are looking for something as a crutch. I smoke. I smoke tobacco. I don't smoke cigarettes, but I smoke. And quite often over the years, people have said, you know, good New Year's resolution for you would be to quit smoking. And I always say, actually, this year, my New Year's resolution is to smoke more, because for me that's more achievable than stopping. It is the only crutch or vice that I have, and I put it to the back of my mind, giving up, quitting. I just think, I'll deal with this some other time. I'm not a heavy smoker,
And it's not
but
detrimental mentally. That's the main thing. I think I've been smoking. So over the past 32 days, if I hadn't had like tobacco, somebody would be dead. Like
yeah.
it's such a mood stabilizer. It stops fidgeting. It's not a good thing health wise, obviously, but it's the least of a lot of worse evils out there. It's not altering your mind. It's not altering your chemical makeup. You can still think coherently. You can still do stuff. You can still drive the car if needed. In an emergency, it's definitely the lesser of a lot of evils. It's not ideal, but it is what it is, and people just like to involve themselves and just tell you that, oh, New Year's, new me. It's like how many people
Mm.
actually stick to their New Year's resolutions.
You can imagine today or tomorrow, perhaps, or maybe more so this coming weekend, how busy the car parks in the local gyms will be when people
Oh
have
yeah,
signed up for a year. And within a month, the car park won't be so full. And 3 months down the line, you'll be able to park wherever you like. And we set ourselves up for a fall. And but tobacco, I mean, originally that was obviously medicinal, and they've added all of these chemicals to it. I think in a cigarette itself, over 100 different chemicals that shouldn't have been there. And something that was used as a medicine has actually been, again, bastardized and turned into something that actually is designed now to cause us harm. And that is what they've done with absolutely everything. They invert things. Something that's originally good becomes bad. Someone who was originally good is portrayed as evil. They've done it with absolutely everything. And I think that also life is hard. A lot of people find life difficult. The cost of living, this sort of pretend house shortage that we're going through. People feel like they need something. For me, with smoking, when I was a tattoo artist, which I was for a very, very long time, for me, about every couple of hours, I would walk outside, take my glasses off, roll a fag, and stand there for 5 or 10 minutes on my own and think. And I was more productive, I believe, as a direct result of that. I made less mistakes. I was sort of having a reset every now and again. Whereas people that didn't smoke that I worked with would sit there all day and only get up to go to the toilet. Well, I wasn't, you know. And if somebody that I was tattooing smoked heavily, then I was going out with them every hour and I'd have a
yeah.
fag, and you reset, a moment of clarity. And I found it very beneficial. So I'm not condoning it. I don't think people should go out there and smoke. All I'm saying is for me, it's the only thing I do. And even on the coldest day of the year, because I don't smoke indoors, I have to go outside. I have to stand outside on my own and think.
When you were doing tattoos, what sort of did you have like a style or a specific type of tattoos that you done? Or
Yeah, I was, my I think if I could go back and do that again, I would have probably focused on Japanese, because I really like the meaning behind it and the history. Um, I wouldn't have done Polynesian and tribal because I didn't understand enough about it. So I was just, someone would come in and say they wanted the same sleeve as Dwayne Johnson or something, and I would just do it. And whereas as I got more experienced and knowledgeable about it, I started to understand that a lot of it was telling a story and representing certain things, and I didn't really, I'd done a lot of it before because it was popular at the time. I'd done a
yeah,
lot of it before I understood why I was doing it. Traditional tattoos are probably what got me into it because I wanted one as a kid, the anchors and the pin-up
those
girls
sailor ones.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and so that's probably my favorite. But I was known for black and grey realism, and
Okay.
the first award I ever won was for a huge back piece I did at a convention, in a town called Bedford, and that was a black and grey realistic piece. So
Have you
people
got
came
any
to me because they
examples
were,
of your work we could look at?
yeah.
Just I love
I will have an
tattoos.
album on my phone. Let's have a look.
So when you say
Oh, here we
realism,
go.
you mean like
Yeah, so
portraits and
it
stuff
would
like that?
vary. So, let's try and get some up that are a full page, a full screen, sorry. So, I mean, this is bloody old, but, sort of portraits. I did a lot of
Wow,
portraits, and then sort of realistic.
that's class.
But then I used to
And
quite like doing, sort of not almost a twist between traditional uh, and black and grey shaded. And I did a lot of cover-ups as well. So there's an old tattoo underneath that.
it's such an interesting art form as
Oh, there
well
you go.
because it's
So there's the
permanence,
old tattoo. I don't know where you can see the
Is it like
old one.
Popeye or something?
What is
It's
it?
sort of
Oh, it's a red dolphin.
a red dolphin, and then underneath it was a
Yeah.
flower.
Yeah. So what else? Yeah. I mean, that's a random one, isn't it? Bird's nest. So yeah, it was mainly black and grey that I got most sort of known for. I don't know where you can see this because it's a screen on a screen.
Yeah, it's not coming across great, but I can see sort of the outline of it. So for realism, probably not fantastic.
No. So yeah, so that's what I did, and people still ask me, when I get my tools back out and do a bit of work on them. But
Where was the
my
last time?
October 24. October 24. I was working in a studio in Taunton, a really, really lovely studio. And I was full time, and then my first book started to move, and I reduced to part time. And I woke up one day and thought my back was going. I was in a lot of pain, and I thought, well, either I put up with the pain and keep trying to juggle the two things, or I listen to my body. And I tried all sorts of things, acupuncture, osteopath, chiropractor, different chairs. I spent a fortune on different chairs and sitting positions, diet, exercise, building up my core strength, smoking weed, CBD, ibuprofen. I tried everything you could think of to stop the pain while I was tattooing. You can't concentrate when you're in pain. And I realized that actually the first thing I thought of when I woke up and the last thing I thought of when I went to sleep was something to do with Tartaria. And a year before that, it would have been, what was I tattooing? What
Change of
needle was I
alignment.
going to use? Yeah, and I thought that if you're going to tattoo somebody, you have to be fully committed to it because it's permanent. And if your heart's not there and you're just doing it for the money or just doing it because it's your job, then you've got to stop. And
Well, there's wisdom there because if it doesn't serve you, same as alcohol and drugs, if it's not serving you anymore, then time to move on.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that what I used to do is, if someone was in for a day session with me, I would sit them down and I would put BitChute on, and I'd say, right, you've got 8 hours here or 6 hours, and you are going to learn all about human cloning. You're going to learn about Operation Paperclip or whatever it is, and they'd either walk away saying, wow, you've opened my mind, or they'd say, actually, I knew a little bit about this, thanks for sharing this, I'm going to use BitChute from now on, I've only been on YouTube before. Or they'd walk away thinking, I'm not going back there, that bloke's mad.
But here you flew your flag, and that means that you're only tattooing people who are either like-minded or open-minded. So
yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. And did you
Yeah.
ever do any Tartaria tattoos?
No, I didn't. No, and a friend of mine had one done actually just after I stopped. He went and got the Tartarian flag on his forearm, and I thought, I'd have liked to have done that for him. But again, if he had have asked me, I would have put it off. I'd have said, oh, maybe next year or maybe in the summer. I'd never have got round to doing it. But I'm completely covered. Apart from my stomach, I'm completely covered. But my back isn't filled in yet. My whole back is a lion's head,
Right. Okay.
realistic lion's head. But the tattoo artist started shading it, did an hour's work. And then we went into, and then my next appointment was in lockdown. So we had to cancel it. I came out of lockdown and I didn't give it much thought. And so, yeah, I walk around with sort of a not even half finished tattoo that covers my entire back.
That's dedication. I mean, where was the sorest place? I found the back of my leg was so badly.
Sole of my foot.
You sick man.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even contemplate the sole of my. What's on the sole of your foot?
2 tattooists played hangman on my foot. And the weird thing was that I just tattooed someone. I'd done Andy. I tattooed Andy from Toy Story on the sole of someone's foot because they were a big fan. And all the way through it, they're flinching and they're in pain, but they didn't stop me. And if anybody looked, I had people tap out and I had people pass out. And you get, the more you're tattooing for, the more you see the signs, and then eventually it doesn't happen anymore. But early on, I'd get the odd person faint. And when I did this particular tattoo, at the end of it, I said, you cope with that really badly. He said, well, it was a little bit like stepping on a Lego block. But there were occasions where it didn't hurt at all, and some occasions where actually it was quite ticklish. It wasn't as bad as I thought. And this wasn't somebody who thought he was some sort of hard man or anything. Just a regular bloke that I'd known for some time. And so I said to my master, the person that taught me, I wouldn't mind finding out for myself, but I'd like to do it without an audience. So her and this guy, they said, well, let's have a go tonight. When we've closed, let's just do something quick on you. And so they played hangman on me, and the word was jazz, J-A-Z-Z. And I got away lightly because they could have put anything on my foot. And it wasn't actually as bad as I thought it was going to be, but that's because of one thing. There wasn't a lot of space. There's not much space. So whatever you're doing on someone's foot, unless you're filling the whole thing in black or with a coloured ink, it's going to be over quite quickly if you think about the area, the surface area. But after that, I would say sternum. The sternum was painful. Kidneys were painful. Elbow, armpit, those sort of places.
I just amazed because I stopped at those areas, so I've got arm pieces and stuff, and I made sure that the design cut off before it got near my armpit or whatever. Because I just understood how bad that was going to be, and I've got quite a high tolerance for pain. But my God, the back of the leg, there was, when they were doing my calf, it felt like somebody was drilling the back of my kneecap for some reason. It was the strangest sensation ever, but very addictive.
Yeah, it is addictive, isn't it? Yeah, ink addiction is a thing, and the number of people, with the exception of one person, my mum. I think when my mum she must have turned about 60. She wanted her first tattoo, and we did a little butterfly on her shoulder because she used to have a clothes shop in Tenerife called Butterfly, and she wanted the logo on her shoulder because she'd moved back to England and she missed the shop. So I did that, and she was the only person that said she only wanted one
and
didn't
kept
come
it
back
at
for
one.
more.
Yeah. Whereabouts in
Yeah, most
Tenerife
people
did you
said
have
anyone.
the shop?
She had the place they live in is called, or they lived in, my dad's still there, they got divorced out there, is Golf del Sur.
Yeah.
So not very far away from Los Cristianos. Near the airport, actually, quite near the airport.
What do you call it? Los Abricos?
Yes.
Yeah, so I used to live there whenever I was 17. I moved over, and I lived in Los Abricos, but we would have went to Golf del Sur quite regularly, and I worked in Golf del Sur as well. And then me and my wife went back to Golf Delcer 2 years ago. It's like where entertainment goes to die. There's no madness in Golf Delcer. It's just like a wee
No.
golfing village. It's so peaceful.
Yeah. My dad lives in 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐿 Golf and Country Club. He lives there. He's
Yeah,
been
we
there
stayed
for.
pretty much beside it in the Baja
Yeah.
Principe. Yeah.
So did you walk down at night into the square, San Blas? There's a square.
Yeah,
with
so we would have
bars and
walked
little
down
restaurants.
San
Go
Blas,
down the
and
hill.
then most nights we went on over to 𝐬𝐫𝐸𝐾𝐭 because it was
Mm.
just so much more
Bit more going
touristless,
on.
if that makes sense, you know. And then whenever we came back a year after, I seen on a Tenerife Facebook page that a whole bunch of migrants had just landed in and were standing at the far side of the harbour of 𝐬𝐫𝐸𝐾𝐭, and just thought, that's going to be the end of that niceness, you know, sort of untouched.
My dad had a place called Tenerife Auction Rooms. So they used to do, they did all sorts of things like house clearances and stuff. And every other Saturday they had a big auction, and it was mainly expats going there. But the odd Spanish family would come along and buy bits and pieces. He used to get quite a lot of Guardia Civil come in, and they'd want something for their home, fridge, freezer, or TV or something, and he would always do them a deal in exchange for a phone number. So if he ever had any problems, he could ring one of them and say, look, I don't speak the language very well, and someone's just broken in, or my car's been trashed, or whatever it is. And so but there was quite a big community. I think he was involved in the Rotary Club out there, and no, the Lions Club, I think it was, where they did a lot of charity work. Yeah, but my dad's still out there. He's retired now. He's 80 in a couple of months. And my brother, he and a couple of other people run a motorhome rental business. So you
close
can,
to Golf Delcer as well.
I don't know where it is. It's called Camp Life, and it always makes me laugh because to me that just sounds like a Carry On film.
It does. Matron, you're just waiting to hear.
Yeah.
Something. Yeah. That would actually be a class way to experience Tenerife, to be fair, though, in a motorhome.
Yeah, he said they're mainly young people, young couples that are doing it, or you'll get 2 or 3 girls or boys that are hiring them, but they tend to be younger, and they get to see the whole island. There are very small pyramids, aren't they, in Tenerife? And they want to go and see those, or go up to TD, or whatever.
TD's very different. We done TD second. That's the only place we really go to holiday is Tenerife, to be fair. I don't know why. We went on our honeymoon and then just kind of continued to go back. But it's whatever you want to make it. Tenerife, you can go to Los Cristianos or Las Americas and be an absolute savage for a week, or you can go to like Golf Delcer or Costa Adeje and have just a nice quiet time. And it is nice island.
I've stayed in the north in Santa Cruz. I stayed there, and that was nice, but of course it's not touristy at all. It's like staying in a city anywhere. But we started going to Lanzarote because we found a place, Puerto del Carmen is the area, and we found a really lovely hotel called Lani's, Lani, and it's a boutique hotel. And the Lani owns the big shopping mall on the island, and his friend, his best friend was the architect, and also did a lot of work with the Spanish royal family. And we were there in 2019, back into 2019, and he said, and we at the time we were going to buy somewhere in Lanzarote, and have it as a bit of a holiday home and a rental. And he said, don't do anything just yet. Give it a year or two, because there's something big coming next year. These people all knew. Yeah, he warned us. He warned us that there was going to be. They all knew it was coming, and that was probably September, October 2019 that he told us not to hold back, because he had it on very good terms that there was something major coming, within the next 6 months, and you know, it could be a problem with property, especially if you want to travel. So just hold off for
Well,
a
it's
moment.
nice to know that there's people that still operate within those circles that have humanity. You know,
Mm.
he didn't have to say anything there.
No, the architect died. His friend died, and the architect that built his hotel is called 𝐼𝐻𝐫𝐸, and a condition was put on the hotel that it wasn't allowed to be changed because this architect was so well respected by the Spanish royal family. The hotel mustn't be changed, and permanently there is a painter and decorator every day that goes around the building touching up everything so it always looks brand new, and
That's
that was
fantastic.
out of respect to this architect. But yeah, if you ever decide to go to Lanzarote, 𝐼𝐻𝐫𝐸 is worth staying at. It's incredibly expensive, and it comes with breakfast included. You don't need to eat after your breakfast, and they cook it on your balcony, and that is
Wow.
the only meal you'll need that day, and you can have it served at any time of the day. So you get up, tell them what you want, they cook it, and what they would do is bring every morning at 9 o'clock, they'd bring me a coffee and a joint to my balcony, because we were ground floor, we could walk to the pool, you know, step out to the
Yeah,
pool, and they'd bring me a joint and a coffee every morning, a
that's
cortado, so it had
fantastic.
a bit of a kick to it. Yeah,
I'm
because of course
sold.
there it's legalized, you know. You could smoke. I'd sat there one morning. I mean, I don't smoke anymore, but when I was a tattooist, I did, because I was in pain all the bloody time. But
Yeah.
um, and it was the only thing that stopped my back from really flaring up. And I sat on the beach one morning and I watched the sun come up, and I sat there with a copper, with a policeman, and we both smoked a joint and watched the sun come up together. He had two full sleeves, really nicely done, and he was about to come off shift. And he said ever since they'd legalized cannabis and opened coffee shops on Lanzarote, the crime rate had dropped to almost insignificant.
I would imagine so. I mean, if you
Mm,
remove the biggest money, you know, from the underworld, it's gonna make quite a significant difference. But obviously,
mm,
that in and of itself would suggest that the legalization or the illegalization of drugs is the a funnel money to dark projects, and you know,
yes.
I don't believe that it's going to a mafiosi guy at the top of the pit. It's going right back into the system and to those who are running the system. You know, I mean, just look at the opiate wars of China, etc. They've always been very involved in the drug trade. So under no
Yeah.
illusion,
They reckon that the CIA is the biggest drug dealer in the world by some
Catholics
way.
in
And
action.
yeah. And look at the Middle East. You know, that one of the first things that they wanted with the poppy fields, you know, to control the supply of opioids.
90% increase in production whenever the US invaded Afghanistan. There was a 90% increase in poppy production and opiate oil production. That's
Mm,
not by chance. They weren't going after the oil,
no,
folks. They
no,
were going
no,
after a brown
absolutely not.
liquid, but it wasn't oil.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
So
it's everything, isn't it?
we have actually managed to do an hour pretty much without much conspiracy talk. That's a first. So one
Yeah.
question before we go.
Mm.
Just tell us a wee bit about your time in the Masons.
Oh, okay. Well, I joined because my dad had, and he wouldn't tell me anything, because that's kind of the rule, or certainly, you know, a bit of the mystique around it. And But when I joined, I didn't join his lodge. I moved to Northampton. I lived in Buckinghamshire, where Buckingham is obviously named after Lord Buckingham, Buckingham Palace, the architect of Buckingham Palace, allegedly. Um, and I moved to Northampton, and the fella across the road from me was 400 meter at the time. Well, he was just recently the 400-meter world champion. He was married to the swimmer Sharon Davis, a fella called Derek Redmond, and he was on Celebrity Gladiators and all this kind of stuff. And I got really friendly with him, and he introduced me to his dad at a dinner and dance that he invited us to. And his dad was some high-ranking Freemason in the city of London, really high. Had the keys to London, to the city. He's very well respected. And he said to me, was I interested? And I said I'd grown up, with my dad obsessing about Freemasonry and how it got him where he was today and all the rest of it. And that it had dropped off my radar, but was something that I had looked into, but I didn't want to join a local lodge. I wanted to join one that met at the Grand Lodge of the United Kingdom in London. That's where I wanted to be, where the action was, where the Knights Templars are, where, the government ministers and members of the royal family are walking in and out the same door as me. I wanted to be there. And he said that's where his lodge met. So I joined, and Jim Davison was in my lodge, Ronnie Scott back in the day. But yeah, Jim Davison was. But most of mine were flying squad. Because Scotland Yard was literally meters away from the building, not very far at all. We used to eat there sometimes because they don't have a restaurant or a dining room in the Grand Lodge, so you'd have to go somewhere else for dinner. So we went there to Scotland Yard to eat. So I joined, and I found it all absolutely fascinating, and learning more about King Solomon. And then slowly a little bit about the Knights Templars, and for me it was filling in blanks, and then I started watching more closely how the high-ranking police officers were using it. And after about 10 years of thinking that I'm getting there, I'm going to be the master of the lodge soon, I've made some brilliant friends, it was of no benefit to me because I was a tattoo artist. I couldn't get myself a promotion in the force or get that planning permission deal on a big contract that I was hoping for. It served no purpose for my career or my personal situation, but it was giving me information that I couldn't read or find online. It was giving me shared information. I learned a lot about King Solomon and the temple and so on. And then one day I'd sort of sat back and thought, well, I'm a year away from being the master of the lodge. And I looked around me, and half of the people in the room were on their phones. One got up and walked out to take a call because of an urgent job, some case that was being worked on. I would see half of them get pissed out of their faces and then drive home, one with the bloody blue lights going one evening. And I thought, this is all bullshit. And then I sat and thought about what I had learned. And I realized by that time, most of the information that had been shared to me was now online. If you typed it into Google, you could find a lot of this stuff out. You could buy the books online from bloody eBay. And it wasn't what I thought. And I thought each year as I progressed up the ranks, because it is progressive, you start off as what they call a steward and you work your way up, that I would learn something more that was sacred. And that was the point. I wanted sacred knowledge. I wanted knowledge that was valuable. And what I actually did was I learnt all that I was ever going to within the first 3 years. And then after that, I was waiting to fill the next position. And then I would have been the master of the lodge, then a past master, and then just sat around raising money for charity. I decided I wasn't going to join the Knights Templar. It was too complicated for me. I didn't have the time to commit to learn something else as well. And I just became more disheartened. And the more I sat back and watched, because I'd reached a position where people were doing a lot of things for me. I mean, I didn't even sit down myself. 2 people would come and help me up and sit me down. And if I got up to do anything, 2 people would appear with staffs and walk around with me. I wasn't really having to do a busting lot, other than repeat the same old ceremonial words and script that I'd done a dozen times before that year, and I just sort of sat back and looked at actually what I'm sat in what appears to be a social club for the Metropolitan Police and the City Police, British Transport Police, and the Flying Squad. I am in a social club that belongs to them. And Derek, my mate Derek, he stopped going. His dad wasn't going so much. I would go on my own sometimes from Northampton down to London. I'd have to take an afternoon off work, pay the congestion charge, pay to park in an NCP car park, chuck some money in the pot for the raffle, and then pay for my dinner, and then pay to actually be a member of that lodge as well. And I got to the point where I actually needed to take the entire day off because they were starting a little bit earlier and the traffic was getting worse and worse. And so I was losing now a day's wages, spending over £100 to get there and back and pay and chuck some money in the pot, losing £500 by going and taking a day off work to sit and watch a load of coppers talking about, you know, how they'd got promoted beyond their total incompetence, and taking phone calls and texting and not bothering to learn any of the rituals or the lines, and actually getting the book out and reading it with a torch in the dark. And I thought that these people are just using this, and I'm in it, and I'm just sat here with them, and I'm paying to be here to watch this lot just abuse it. I'm done. And I left, and I came back because my youngest son wanted to join, and I thought I'll let him decide for himself. I'm not gonna share anything with him. I'm gonna let him make his own mind up. And he joined, and he stayed for a couple of years, and he lobbed it in as well. So I only went back once to get him in, and then I stopped going. He carried on for a couple of years, and then he quit, and he said, you know, it wasn't for him. And I said, why? And he said, I suppose because I joined the wrong lodge and I'm not a high-ranking member of the Metropolitan Police.
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people don't really realise. On the lower levels, it really is a social club. You know, they're not in there planning world domination. They're planning their next promotion.
No, people say to me all the time, oh, it's satanic. It's, you know, you were devil worshipping. You didn't realise. And my first question is, well, obviously you're a Freemason, because otherwise you wouldn't know what goes on. So you can't go out there and say you know what happens in one of these meetings unless you've been in one of these meetings. You're just talking nonsense, or it's regurgitated or second, third, fourth hand information from somebody else. And the next part is that, you know, people that join are dark and sinister. No, I would say that some of the older people that joined, they had joined initially because they were lonely. They'd been widowed and they weren't getting out, and someone had recommended or suggested it, and they thought, right, well, that's a couple of nights a week, because you can go to something called Lodge of Instruction, where you learn a bit more each time. You can go to other lodges as a guest. They have lots of functions and events on, and sometimes it would just be a golf charity day.
Yeah.
But it gave people that were lonely, or wanted to expand their social circle, it gave them an opportunity to do that. And there were a lot of people that joined because they wanted to raise money for charity on a bigger scale. And I would say it's probably only 50% of the people that join are doing it because they want to use it and abuse it. I was one of the unusual ones. I joined because I wanted to find out what they knew. I had no agenda. No agenda. So I just wanted to be part of it and learn. And so I was quite unique in that respect. So I was one of the few people that actually didn't have to get their book out in the middle of a ritual. If you were initiating someone into it, I didn't need to refer to my book because I'd been reading it anyway, trying to decipher this shit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some of it's written in code. So I was probably a little bit unusual, but met some interesting characters there.
By all means, I think the Masons or those sorts of networks would clearly be able to be activated for nefarious purposes, but for people just to believe that, you know, average Tom, Dick and Harry are going there with plans of world domination as opposed to maybe wanting a promotion or a better house. I mean, you know, you're giving people too much credit there.
Really, I mean, to give you an example, if I moved to your city, if I moved to Belfast tomorrow and I didn't know you and I didn't know anybody, and I was still occasionally going to Freemasons lodge meetings, then the first thing I could do is go to the biggest lodge in Belfast, because I imagine there's bloody dozens of them there. Knock on the door and say, I've just moved to the area, I don't know anybody, and within 24 hours I'll have a group of friends that I could ring and say, this has just happened to me. I don't know what to do.
It's networking,
And
basically.
yeah, and they've also made an oath to protect each other, to help each other if they can, and to never turn a brother away if they need help. Um, and so, you know, you could use it for that. So if ever I was in the middle of nowhere and I was stuck in a big town or city, because they're all over the world, then I could go to one and say, I've got a problem and I need some help. And that, you know, that's it. But somebody once said to me that they'd been on this big database to see who all the Freemasons in the world were, and they were checking through all the names. Doesn't exist. There is no database. And that the current theme is that the Metropolitan Police are now having a bit of a battle with being pushed to declare whether or not you're a Freemason when you join the police, or if you're a serving police officer. None of that's true. The Metropolitan Police are the London Freemasons. You know, it is the same people. It's all nonsense. And higher up, once you get really high up, Scottish Rite and above, then that's when it all changes. And that's a closed shop. You know, I wasn't going to get there because I didn't have the contacts or the connections. I don't look the right part, you know.
Or usefulness as well. Like what could they use a
There's
tattoo
no
artist for?
use.
You know,
Yeah, exactly. And they didn't like the tattoos either. A lot of them didn't like them. So, you know, which is quite funny, really, because, you know, I thought it was about brotherly love and supporting each other, not judging someone by their appearance.
I
But,
think
you
that's
know,
an
there can
age
be.
thing more than anything, though. You know, like
Yeah,
my parents'
yeah,
age group
you're right.
detest tattoos, you know, and that's because it used to be the things that only prisoners or the bad people had, you know, or the sailors or the foul mouthed.
Mm.
Whereas if you don't have a tattoo now, you're unique as opposed to
Yeah, yeah. And I don't actually, I think I don't speak to him very often, but my dad is the only person I can, well, two friends and my dad, they're the only people I know that haven't got any,
yeah.
because
It's
it has become the norm. And I've got to say, love him or hate him, and I think he's actually been replaced by a clone. David Beckham helped,
yeah,
you know, having
yeah.
someone in his position so heavily covered really helped. And you've got him now on the World Economic Forum stage, you know, obviously completely and utterly controlled, spouting absolute bollocks, covered from head to toe in tattoos. And
But just
that's
thinking
certainly
about
going to
that,
make life.
David
Mm.
Beckham, David Beckham on the World Economic Forum stage, like what on earth could he possibly contribute to world economics? You know,
The only thing he can contribute is getting people who think David Beckham's cool to start thinking the World Economic Forum is a good thing. But he's been replaced. I mean, he doesn't even look like David Beckham now. The last picture I saw of him, he looked like Burt Reynolds when he was younger.
he
Doesn't
does look
even look
very
the same.
different, very
Yeah, so I
very
think he's
different.
been replaced. Yeah, I do.
Well,
I think I think they do that. Once you served your purpose, then you know they'll get rid of you, replace
and
you with a
some of
clone,
them
and that will do.
it's so obvious, like the height differences and stuff in some of the clones is
Yeah, yeah.
it's
I mean, Mark
scary. Like
Zuckerberg's another one. Mark Zuckerberg goes from geek to jujitsu bloody champion, you know, and you know, come on, that's not
hunting
him, and he's
bro, and
actually, yeah, it's not the same person, is it? And they
no,
do this. I mean, Princess Kate is a good example. Disappears because we're told she got cancer, comes back, and the first thing we see is a heavily photoshopped picture that she has to actually announce on on social media that she had to go photoshopping it herself. You know, what would have been the future Queen of England doesn't have a go photoshopping their own pictures for Instagram. You
no.
know, so yeah, they obviously replace people, and I imagine there are a lot of people like you could look at Dwayne Johnson, you could look at a lot of them and think, yeah, okay, you're not the
Dwayne the
same
Ad
person
Johnson.
anymore.
He's just one big advertisement, just one big walking
Isn't he
advertisement.
just?
Like
Yeah, isn't he
everything he
just?
does was in and out burger. He pretended he'd been there for the first time 3 separate times on Instagram to make it look like it was just a by chance promotion, not that he'd been asked, but he's like, oh, this is my first time at In-N-Out Burger, and you know, It's no, this is your second time. We can go back and check your Instagram. It's
it's ridiculous, isn't it?
Once again, it's been fantastic having you on, Guy, and obviously we hope to have you back again and maybe a bit more structured next time. But it was just good to have a chat. And
it's nice to have a chat, isn't it? And it's New Year's Day, so nice
no need to be so heavy about stuff. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I think so.
Well,
yeah.
Enjoy the rest of your January, and I will be in touch anyway, and I'll let you know what I think of the book. I should have it finished in the next week or so. So
yeah, thank you.
No problem, and
I appreciate you supporting me.
Always will support you. So good to have you on, and if you could like, share, and subscribe, guys, thank you very much.
Done with casting pearls amongst the swine, 'cause each of us is running out of time. It's already started silent, you won't hear a chime. You'll be measured and punished for each heavenly crime.